As I often like to say, get woke, go broke is not a law. It is not absolute. There are many instances where media or companies get woke and it actually works out for them. But get woke, go broke is a tendency. And it's typically about when a company gets woke in the most absurd ways. Look, if a movie series, let's use this, Ghostbusters, for instance. They did Ghostbusters 3, right? They did this new movie. And the new group of Ghostbusters are a bunch of young kids of racially diverse backgrounds. You get the little Asian kid, you've got the, mixed race or black female and a white male and a female. Nobody cared. Nobody's complaining about diversity in that capacity. That was actually tasteful and well done. And the racial makeup of the characters is not relevant to the fact that they were good characters and it was a fun movie and I had a great time watching it. But what about when you're a, spice company and you claim that all Republicans everywhere are racist and fantasize about killing black people? Yeah, that's psychotic. And that's typically what we refer to when we say, get woke, go broke, because boy, do we have a doozy. This company, based out of Wisconsin, lost 40,000 subscribers. And now they are begging people to make pre-orders, buy gift cards because, well, get woke, go broke. My friends, I think you take a look at stories like this, which is extreme, to be completely honest. The things that this company said are insane. But you take a look at what's been going on, and I got to say, looks like free speech, free inquiry, and freedom is winning. Freedom often does win. This person wanted to come out and claim that Republicans were all racist and evil or whatever, and now their company is suffering for it. Yo, don't get involved in this lunacy. But I do think the war is far from over. There are a series of battles which you could argue have been won by those who prefer freedom over authority, liberty over authority. But the war is not over yet. And so long as people like this still exist and others would support them, well, then we've got some very serious issues. And there are a lot of other stories out there right now. The Freedom Convoy, which is going on, is a huge story. But I'll be getting into that in another segment. You probably already heard it if you're listening to the podcast. But let's take a look at this story here. Fox Business. Spice company that called Republicans racist begs for gift card purchases after losing customers. The Spice company has reportedly lost more than 40,000 subscribers after the CEO's politically charged email. Well, let's take a look at what that politically charged email was. In this story from Fox Business, Penzi's Spices CEO declares MLK weekend, quote, Republicans are racists weekend. Bill Penzi suggests Republicans fantasize about killing black people. The CEO of, this is from January 18th, mind you, the CEO of Penzi's Spices renamed the extended Martin Luther King Jr. Day weekend to Republicans are Racist Weekend in a recent newsletter to customers, wherein he said his aim was to anger Republicans in honor of the late civil rights icon. And I just find it very, very funny that Republicans are the ones who are actually posting the MLK Jr. memes, supporting his quotes, while the left are the ones besmirching his name and rejecting his ideology. And they try to come up with all these weird and ridiculous reasons why they thought he was right. Let me just explain something to all of you. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said that he had a dream in which his 4 little children would grow up one day and be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin, which is the opposite of what the Democratic establishment and the woke want. I digress. Let's read more. Quote, remember how Republicans, going against a mountain of evidence to the contrary, once again lied and said BLM wasn't a peaceful movement, but instead terrorists inciting violence throughout the country, and then raced out to buy a crapload of guns because maybe they were finally going to get their chance to shoot a black person. Penzi wrote, what a bunch of racists. Let's break this down. First of all, it wasn't Republicans who ran out to buy guns. In fact, it was liberals. It was in liberal cities where first-time gun buyers went through the roof. Now, if this guy could break out of the cult, city urban liberal types, as it were, maybe he would realize that in his own city, people who are not Republican are buying guns. They're doing so because of the violence. There's a really funny viral video where this guy who owns a gun shop, he makes a video and he's like, to all the first-time gun buyers out there, and like the liberal ones, he's like, you come in here, you try to buy a gun, and you get angry that you can't. Yeah. I did a video a few years ago about this journalist who tried to go to Walmart to buy a gun, couldn't do it. And then wrote, like, I'm surprised I wasn't able to buy a gun. And the left, these, I shouldn't say the left, because true leftists they support gun rights. But the establishment liberal types are like, you can just walk in and buy whatever you want. And this lady couldn't do it. And the video actually went viral, got like millions of views. It's a funny story. So here's what ends up happening. These liberals see the riots, they see the pandemic, and they say, time to get a gun. They go out and try to buy one, but they have no idea this is what they voted for. So many of them don't know that you can't just walk in and buy a gun, don't realize you need IDs, don't realize there's something called PANICS, a background check they have to go through. And then when they do, and the gun store owner says, okay, come back in 3 to 5 days and we'll get you all set up. They go, wait, what? I need the gun now. And he's like, yeah, well, too bad. You voted for this, you morons. He didn't say it like that. But he did say he was frustrated with all these entitled people being like, why can't I get this? Can I pay more money? No, you can't pay more money. But I think it's funny. This crackpot at Penzi Spices losing customers because he thinks it was Republicans rushing out to buy guns. Dude, Republicans already have guns. They're not rushing out to buy a crap load of guns. They already have them. Now, I'll be honest. Many of them went and bought more, for sure. But the surge in gun buying came from liberals. Or I should say, people who don't pay attention. In addressing Republican voters at the end of his message, Penzi told them, the racist label is one you will deservingly wear every day you stand with the Republican Party. You know, it's really, really funny. We had Tom Garrett on the Timcast IRL podcast last Friday. And he's a Republican. He gets smeared as, racist and all that stuff. And on the show, he mentioned, the verdicts of Kyle Rittenhouse and Ahmaud Arbery. And he said, with the Arbery case, that was clear. They murdered that guy. And I stopped him right there. I said, whoa, what do you mean? What do you mean? You're going to trigger me. And he was like, what? I was like, I'm getting triggered. Because the Ahmaud Arbery case is not, he was like, yeah, that guy that was jogging. No, he wasn't jogging. I'm not going to sit here and entertain lies for any reason. Fox News will. Tulsi Gabbard will. Many conservatives came out and defended the Ahmaud Arbery verdict. Yo, don't come at me with that stuff, okay? If you don't know the story, you may as well be going out and crapping all over Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse acted in self-defense. The McMichaels maybe shouldn't have gone after that guy. That's a fair assessment. But this whole narrative of a guy jogging and being hunted down, shut your mouths, you liars. And you know what? I bring that up because this guy is like, you'll be deservingly called a racist. Yo, I literally don't care about your opinion, dude. It doesn't mean anything anymore. The left has played with this definition to the point it's just completely meaningless. And it's funny too, even when it comes to issues of like defamation and stuff, yo, if someone defames me and it causes damage to my business, yeah, I'm going to pursue it. Absolutely. It's not super easy. And sometimes you can't you do every single one, but I fully intend, don't defame me. But racism is an opinion you can't really do anything against. That being said, I think Times v. Sullivan, it created an impossible standard where the media can lie with impunity, needs to be reformed or looked at again by the courts. Anyway, he goes on to say, get used to it, or maybe instead become a better person. The choice is yours. We will be here rooting for you to choose love. Yo, you're in a cult, you're insane, and I don't care what you think. And apparently, the 40,000 customers you lost agree, you idiot. You want to come out and be in your cult? By all means, go ahead and do so. Yo, if you don't have Google, but your business deserves to fail. What's that famous quote? Republicans buy shoes too. I don't know if it's actually true that Michael Jordan said that, but there's someone who claims it is. I can't remember who it was. I covered that a while ago. Penzi's latest email to customers follows another from an earlier this month that made headlines wherein he called Republican voters the number one threat to this country. Following the coverage of his earlier newsletter, Penzi reached out and thanked Fox Business for delivering his words to exactly where they needed to go. The CEO did not respond to Fox Business' request for comment on his Republicans are racist weekend message. A supporter of Penzi, who also thanked Fox Business for the coverage of his earlier letter, declined to comment. Meanwhile, Fox Business has heard from a slew of individuals offended by both of Penzi's controversial recent emails. Some of them said they were Republicans, but not all. A self-proclaimed lifelong Penzi's customer from a prominent investment firm who spoke with Fox Business on the condition of anonymity said he was so shocked when a colleague sent him the Republicans are racist email that he thought it was a joke and that someone had hacked Penzi's Spices systems. I'm not a Democrat or Republican. Having never registered for either party, I am, however, first and foremost a patriot. And as such, I recognize the difficult time our country is facing right now as various factions, inside and out, try to foment discord amongst us. The fact that any company feels they can make such a patently absurd statement like this and not immediately be condemned by all is a testament to how far things have deteriorated in this great country. Our nation faces many challenges, and it's incumbent on all Americans to find ways to bring us closer together to face the many challenges that lie ahead, the longtime Penzi's customer continued. Companies, politicians, celebrities, and anyone who has a platform should be working towards that and recognized and rewarded for that contribution. He added, in much the same way, those that seek to further create dissent and sow discord should be rebuked and face condemnation for their actions. It's not so easy. You know, I was thinking about this with the Joe Rogan segment earlier. Joe Rogan, of course, said that he thought it was good that Spotify was going to be putting an advisory on episodes, podcast shows about COVID. Likely would include this podcast you're listening to now, even though it's an earlier segment. On YouTube, it's different, but on the podcast, they're all condensed. You know, part of me, I feel a couple ways about this. Joe Rogan willing to accept to negotiate, to compromise, even a little bit. It's not all bad. I mean, he's trying to do right by this other faction. He's trying to be in the middle and trying to make sure things don't get ripped apart. But I wonder if things are too far gone. All right. I wonder if ceding any ground to these cult members is just destroying us. I'll give you an example. Gun rights. Look at what this guy says. Republicans buying guns. The Democrats come out and say, we'd like to ban more guns. The Republicans come out and say, no. Where is the political faction to come out and say, unban the guns? So every single time there's a movement, it's the exact same thing. I can respect Joe Rogan for trying to stay on his show, to trying to maintain some support, to maintain, have some tact for sure. Maybe Joe just needs to have some alternate platform, or maybe the reality is we just have to recognize that even podcasts like Joe Rogan's are slowly sinking. It's a good show. It's going to last for a long time. Slowly sinking, however. The left says, we demand. The right says, I'll give you a little bit. Every single time. So no, I look at this and I'm like, excise these lunatics. Tell them to shut up. I wonder if the proper response from Joe, considering he has a contract with Spotify, is to say, Spotify, you made your bed, you lay in it. This is not the way, and I will not tolerate you flagging my content as misinformation. Now, what they would technically do is they're not going to call it misinformation. I think this is the compromise. Spotify's will put an advisory that links to other content, and Joe's probably like, yeah, whatever, who cares about that? But it's the grain of sand. It may not seem like a big deal, but it's the grain of sand. It slowly moves us all in the direction of the left because the right never wins a grain of sand. The right gives the grain of sand. So if the right has 100 points and the left has negative 100 is authoritarian and positive 100 is, freedom or whatever. And I'm not saying that Republicans are all about freedom all the time. If the right keeps giving up 1, 2, 3 points here and there, eventually they just lose. And the whole country drifts leftward towards these psychotic individuals. Well, here's what ends up happening. Fox Business reports about earlier in the month, he said what he said. They quote him. Since sending his controversial email, Penzi sent out another missive Friday asking for gift card purchases and admitting that his company has since lost 40,005 subscribers, approximately 3% of their base. Now, to be real, 40,000 people, 3%? Jeez, how does this company make so much money? Or what's their subscriber base? Are these, how much money do these people get? Are they unpaying subscribers? Maybe that's the reality. They lost 40,000 subscribers. Subscribers to what? Their newsletter? 3% of their base. What does that mean? After starting the year with all Republicans are Republicans and following up with Republicans are racist, we've set a nice little boycott Penzi surge in motion. It certainly wasn't unexpected, but if it's within your means, you picking up a small stack of gift cards would help. That's right. Give them money for nothing because, you know what? I don't care what you do. I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of left-wing people who see this story or maybe even this video and decide they're going to go service Penzi's or whatever, and they're going to give them money. That's a reality. There have been platforms that have done stupid things that I've worried, if I highlight them, they'll just end up making more money anyway because parallel economies are emerging. That's true. I don't care at this point. If you want to support them, you're free to do it. Just because I don't want you to is not relevant to what the story is. And that's the important takeaway. So I'll give you an example. Quillette, for instance. Quillette has gone off the deep end. They're now defending critical race theory. They're defending quarantine camps for people who are taken from their homes and placed there. They've totally lost the plot for whatever reason. And when they went off the deep end, I thought, if I keep talking about them, then certain people who are pro-authoritarian will find them and give them support. And I thought, the outcome isn't important, right? It is. But I'm not here to engage in activism and be worried about what you decide you want to do. If it turned out that all the people who watched my video actually hated my guts and watched to know who to support that I opposed, okay, well, so be it. I'm not doing this from an activist perspective. I'm just giving my thoughts and opinions. And if it turns out the majority of people want to support a company like Penzi's, you're free to do so. I think it's important to talk about and highlight. And if I'm wrong on the issue, well, then so be it. I'm not going to avoid talking about something out of fear that people might like that thing and I don't like it. You see what I mean? It's like, I don't like what they're doing, so I better not give them any attention. Nah, look, if I'm wrong on this one, you guys decide for yourselves. I'll just tell you how I feel, and I'm not right about everything. Quote, if you can't even begin to fathom how to compromise with January 6th or the Republican vaccine lies needlessly killing 10,000 Americans every week, if you have no desire to become halfway racist, and if their intent to destroy our climate for 1,000 years to come doesn't have you asking, what if we just destroyed it for 500 years instead? We would be better off with you on this Voice of Cooking email list, he wrote. Okay, so this is basically just an email list. It's not like, anything that big, but it does look like they're losing a lot of customers. There's a difference between 30,000 customers and whatever. He said, despite the fact they lost 40,000, they did bring in 30,000 new subscribers, which brings me to my point. There's a book out by this guy. I forgot his name. We're trying to reach out to him to see if we can get him on the podcast. He doesn't seem like a right-wing guy at all, but he wrote a book about, the new civil war, that it's coming. And he said it is coming. It's weird to me that the left has been adamantly opposed to the idea of a civil war for some time. Now the establishment is basically pushing this idea, and now the right is rejecting it. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like, on the right, are you just now pretending like you've ignored the past several years simply because establishment Democrats have said it? I'm not saying every single person on the right. There are just personalities on the right saying the left is trying to convince you a civil war is coming. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe after Chaz, I considered that was a possibility when they took over several city blocks and killed people. Now we have this. The parallel economy that I warned about 4 years ago. I said, if the censorship continues, eventually you will build parallel economies. Conservatives don't just cease to exist because you've blocked them. When they were banning people on the right, what happens? Well, Gab exists. Gab starts building up infrastructure. When all the infrastructure starts banning Gab built their own infrastructure. Now there are right-wing payment processors. Now there are right-wing video hosting sites. Now you have the right leaving a spice company, and they're getting new subscribers. They are gaining left-wing ideologues and losing right-wing individuals or moderates. So now what? Is a right-wing group going to start their own spice company? I would not be surprised. Once the parallel economies are solidified, war. Once both sides have means to produce and recover supplies and resources, that's when war can truly happen. If you have two countries, country A is dependent on country B for wheat. They can't go to war, they need food. But what happens when country B slowly cuts off the wheat supply? Country A starts suffering, and then one of two things happen. They build their own wheat supply, or they say, we must invade country B to get wheat. In the end, the separation results in major conflict and war. Let me show you something. It's from Civics. Joe Biden job approval. It's currently at 34% among all demographics. Let's take a look at the Republicans. Of course, the Republicans despise Joe Biden. 96% disapproval. I didn't think it could get higher than it was when it started, but it started at 90 and now it's at 96. Independent voters, 65% disapproval. Let's look at Democrats. Now, unsurprisingly, Democrats do support Joe Biden, but approval has dropped from 90% to 72%. So when you're a crackpot spice company and you come out and say all Republicans are racist, you're even threatening to lose some Democrats because they don't agree. I imagine there are many Democrats out there who went and bought guns. And they were called racist by this guy. And they said, I'm out, man. I imagine there were many Democrats who had their businesses destroyed when the BLM riots happened. In fact, in Seattle, when the Chaz happened, it was mostly Democrats. And they see this and they say, screw you, dude. I just want to live my life and be left alone. You know, the average Democrat, many of them are just trapped in the mainstream bubble. But you know, they just want a better world. They think universal health care is the path towards helping people. I wish they'd wake up and pay attention. The Republican Party isn't the answer. I got to be completely honest. Mises Caucus seems to be pretty good, but there's no real answer. The real answer is just not the left. That's just the reality. They're ideologues. They take people who are upset about corporate work conditions and then espouse communism as the answer. It's not. Neither is laissez-faire capitalism, but people get roped up in the ideology. Free inquiry, freedom, personal responsibility, and community responsibility in balance. That's the answer. And that means you guys out there who are unhappy with Biden, the economy is bad. Yeah, well, many of you voted for this guy. And now we can see around what? We've got a decent amount of people, 18 or so percent, that are clearly regretting their decision. Now, I'm not saying approving of Biden is a direct correlation to voting for him, but I'd imagine there's close enough. These people are saying, I'm mad as hell, I'm not taking it anymore. I'm not going to take it anymore. And this guy thinks he can come out and just espouse his psychotic cult ideology. Sorry. Get woke, go broke. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.